I didn't expect my war bonus to be a kiss. I definitely didn't expect it to happen in front of 200 armed soldiers who looked like they'd rather dissect me than salute me. But Commander Kale Sarath apparently had other plans. Let me back up. 3 days ago, I was a mid-level scout for the Allied territories, specializing in infiltration and cultural assessment. Captain Marlowe Ashford Service, number 773492. My job was simple. Get an observe report, get out. I'd done it 17 times across 9 hostile sectors. Clean record, 0 diplomatic incidents. Not even a reprimand for unauthorized fraternization. Then I got reassigned to Outpost Arcturus, a fortress carved into the obsidian cliffs of the border moon Thessara. The assignment brief made it sound routine. 6 months of cultural exchange duties under the ceasefire treaty. File reports, attend briefings, smile politely at diplomatic functions. Career padding disguised as peace building. I should have known better. The Kale, that's what they call themselves, were our newest ceasefire partners. 2 years of brutal skirmishes had finally ground down to an uneasy truce. They weren't quite allies, definitely not friends, but the treaty held fragile as spun glass, and part of that treaty involved cultural exchange postings. I was told I'd be debriefed, assigned quarters, and spend 6 months watching Kale military logistics from a safe distance. Boring, safe. The kind of assignment that looked good on promotion reviews. What I got instead was a formal assembly in the Hall of Convergence. The transport touched down on Thessara's landing platform just after dawn. The moon's surface was rust-red wasteland cracked stone, stretching to every horizon under a sky the color of old blood. 2 pale suns hung low and distant, barely warming the recycled air that hissed through the docking bay seals. Outpost Arcturus looked like something out of a fever dream. Someone had taken an ancient cathedral, stripped it of anything resembling mercy, and fused it with a weapons platform. Obsidian spires rose from the cliff face, each one humming with shielding energy that made my teeth ache. The corridors were lined with veins of blue bioluminescent crystal that pulsed like a heartbeat. Everything was sharp angles, an echoing stone, and the constant metallic taste of air that had been breathed too many times. I'd read the briefing materials, studied the cultural protocols, memorized the hierarchy gestures. None of it prepared me for the sheer weight of the place. It felt old, ancient, like the stone itself remembered wars I'd never heard of. A young Kale officer met me at the inner airlock, Specialist Soren Vale according to his designation patch. He had the same silver-white skin as every Kale I'd seen in surveillance footage, the same unsettling violet eyes with vertical pupils that tracked movement like a predator's. But where the others looked like they could kill me with a glance, Soren just looked nervous. "Captain Ashford," he said, and his voice had that strange harmonic quality all Kale possessed. 2 frequencies layered over each other, like listening to a duet with yourself. "Welcome to Outpost Arcturus. I am your assigned liaison. If you will follow me, the assembly is prepared." Assembly, right. The briefing had mentioned something about a formal welcome ceremony. "How formal are we talking?" I asked, falling into step beside him. His eyes flickered. Uncertainty, maybe, or concern. Hard to read expressions on a face that wasn't quite human. "The commander wishes to honor your arrival personally," he said carefully. "It is traditional." Traditional. In my experience, that word usually meant trouble. The Hall of Convergence lived up to its name. The doors were twice my height, carved obsidian, inscribed with symbols I didn't recognize. When they swung open, the sound echoed like a death knell. The hall beyond could have swallowed a battleship. Vaulted ceilings disappeared into shadow 40 feet overhead. The walls were lined with those same bioluminescent crystals, casting everything in cold blue light. And standing in perfect formation, 200 Kale soldiers, maybe more. All armed, all watching. My boots clicked against the stone floor. Each step too loud, too exposed. The soldiers' eyes tracked me like targeting systems acquiring a lock. At the center of the hall stood a raised platform. A dais, technically, though it looked more like an execution stage. And standing at its center, Commander Kale Sarath. She was tall, even for a Kale, nearly 7 feet in her formal uniform boots. Her skin had that same silver-white sheen, but hers seemed to catch the light differently. Shimmer under the overhead crystals like she was carved from starlight. Her eyes were violeted deep as bruises with those vertical pupils that made every glance feel predatory. Her uniform was immaculate. Dark metal plating over reinforced weave form-fitted and ceremonial at the same time. Every edge was sharp, every line was precise. Her hair was bound in what the briefing had called a war knot, a complex braid that signified active command status. Silver strands woven with black pulled tight enough to emphasize the angles of her face. She looked like she could kill me with a glance. She probably could. I walked the length of that hall, feeling every single eye boring into my back. Standard protocol, I told myself. Diplomatic theater. Smile, accept whatever medal or commendation they were planning, get through the ceremony without causing an interstellar incident. I stopped at the base of the dais, stood at attention, kept my eyes forward and my face neutral. Commander Sarath regarded me for a long moment, assessing, measuring. Her expression was unreadable professional authority carved in silver skin. "Scout Marlowe Ashford," she said, and her dual harmonic voice made every syllable feel heavier than it should. "You have been assigned to this outpost under the provisions of Treaty Covenant 9-7. Your presence here represents a continued effort toward mutual understanding between our peoples." I stood perfectly still. Regulation posture: don't react, don't respond unless asked. "Your service record is noted," Sarath continued. Her eyes never left mine. 17 successful reconnaissance operations, 0 casualties, exemplary cultural adaptation scores across multiple hostile environments. Was she praising me in front of her entire command staff? I hadn't expected that, hadn't prepared for approval. "In recognition of your contribution to the ceasefire effort," Sarath said, "and your upcoming service to this installation, it is customary to offer a war bonus, a gesture of respect between soldiers." A war bonus, right? Maybe a medal, a formal commendation, extra rations, standard diplomatic protocol. Commander Sarath stepped down from the dais. She walked toward me. Every instinct I'd honed over 17 missions started screaming. Not danger exactly, not threat, something else. Something my hindbrain recognized even if my conscious mind refused to process it. She stopped less than a foot away, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact, close enough to see the faint pattern of bioluminescence beneath her skin, traceries of light that pulsed with her heartbeat. Her violet eyes locked on mine, unblinking, absolute. "The bonus I offer," she said quietly, but the acoustics in that hall carried every syllable to every corner, "is this." She kissed me. Not a polite press of lips, not a ceremonial brush on the forehead. Commander Kale Sarath cupped the back of my neck with one hand, cool fingers against my skin, tilted my face up and kissed me like she was claiming territory. It lasted 5 seconds, maybe 6. Long enough for my brain to short-circuit and my body to forget how breathing worked. Long enough for the shock to register, then the heat, then the absolute surreal impossibility of what was happening. Her lips were cool, firm. The dual harmonic resonance of her voice carried through the kiss, vibrating against my mouth in a way that made my spine tingle. Her fingers tightened on my neck, possessive and certain, and for those 5 or 6 seconds, the entire universe narrowed down to the point of contact. When she pulled back, her expression was exactly as unreadable as before. Professional, detached, like she just signed a requisition form instead of kissing me senseless in front of 200 witnesses. "Welcome to Outpost Arcturus, Captain Ashford." Then she turned and walked back to the dais, back straight, steps measured, like nothing had happened. The hall was dead silent. I stood there, heart hammering against my ribs, face burning hot enough to melt steel, trying to process what had just happened, trying to remember how to make my lungs work, trying not to collapse under the weight of 200 Kale soldiers staring at me like I'd just been branded. Because as it turned out, I had been. The assigned quarters were small, austere. A bunk built into the wall, a desk that folded down from a panel, and a viewport that looked out over Thesara's rust-red wastelands. No decorations, no personal touches, just stone and metal and that ever-present blue bioluminescence. I paced, back and forth across 6 feet of floor space, boots clicking against stone. My heart still hadn't slowed down. My face still felt hot. My neck still tingled where her fingers had pressed. What the hell just happened? 20 minutes after I'd been escorted from the hall, someone knocked on my door. I almost didn't open it, almost pretended I wasn't there. But ignoring problems had never been my strong suit. Soren Vale stood in the corridor looking even more nervous than before. His violet eyes were wide, his posture apologetic. "You seem distressed," he said carefully. Distressed? That was putting it mildly. "Yeah," I said. "That's one word for it." I stepped back, let him enter. He moved like he expected me to take a swing at him. Fair enough, I was considering it. "What the hell just happened out there?" I demanded. Soren winced. Actually winced. "You were not briefed on Kale bonding customs." Bonding customs. The way he said it made my stomach drop. "Bonding," I repeated slowly. As in, as in Commander Sarath just declared a vow mark in front of the entire garrison. I stopped pacing. A what now? Soren looked like he wanted to disappear through the floor. He sat down on the edge of my desk, careful not to touch anything, and took what might have been a steadying breath. "A vow mark is a public declaration of intent to bond," he said. "It is, how do I explain this, among the Kale physical touch is reserved for combat or intimate partnership. A kiss, especially a kiss witnessed by one's command, is functionally a claim. It signals that the recipient is under the protection and regard of the one who offers it. Protection and regard. So she just claimed me," I said flatly, "in front of everyone." "Essentially, yes." My mind was racing. 17 missions, 9 sectors. I'd been threatened, shot at, nearly poisoned twice, and once trapped in a collapsing mine shaft. None of it compared to the sheer absurdity of this. "Why?" I asked. "Why would she do that?" Soren looked profoundly uncomfortable. "There are political factions within the Kale military who oppose the ceasefire," he said. "Certain officers see your presence here as an opportunity, either to sabotage the treaty by causing harm to you, or to leverage you as a bargaining piece for their own advancement. By marking you publicly, Commander Sarath placed you under her authority. It makes you untouchable." Untouchable. "Great," I said. "Fantastic. So when I'm a political pawn." "You are a protected asset," Soren corrected. "There is a difference." "Is there?" He didn't answer. I sat down on my bunk, put my head in my hands, felt the weight of the situation settling over me like a lead blanket. "What happens if I refuse the vow mark?" I asked. "You cannot refuse what has already been declared," Soren said quietly. "The act itself is binding. However, you may choose not to reciprocate, in which case the mark stands as one-sided protection, but it will be seen as a rejection. Commander Sarath's authority would be diminished. Her rivals would interpret it as weakness." Perfect, absolutely perfect. So my options were accept a bond I didn't ask for with a woman I barely knew, or humiliate her in front of her entire command and probably restart the war. Fantastic. I didn't see Commander Sarath for 2 days after that. I did, however, meet Lieutenant Vex Thorn. He showed up at my door on the second night. Polite smile, veiled threat wrapped in diplomatic language. Thorn was older than Sarath, maybe early 40s. His silver skin was marked with scars that crisscrossed his forearms like a roadmap of violence. His eyes were the same violet as hers, but colder. Calculating. The kind of eyes that assessed everything in terms of tactical advantage and kill angles. "Captain Ashford," he said smoothly, "I trust you are settling in well." I didn't open the door any wider. "Well enough." "I wanted to extend an offer," Thorne said. His smile never wavered. "Commander Sarath's claim is unconventional. Many of us believe you would be better served under a more experienced sponsor. I could arrange a transfer to a different wing. Better quarters. More autonomy." "More autonomy, right. In exchange for what?" I asked. "Your cooperation, small reports, observations about Commander Sarath's decision-making processes. Nothing that would compromise your integrity." "Right, just like treason." "Thanks," I said, "but I'm good." His smile didn't falter. If anything, it sharpened. "Consider it carefully, Captain. The commander's protection only extends as far as her authority, and authority, as you will learn, is a fragile thing among the Kale." He left before I could respond. I locked the door and leaned against it. My heart was racing again, but this time from adrenaline instead of shock. Soren had been right. I wasn't just a guest here. I was a piece on a board, and every move mattered. Commander Sarath finally summoned me on the third day. Her office was located in one of the upper spires. a circular room with viewport walls that overlooked the entire outpost. The view was dizzying, kilometers of obsidian fortress sprawling across rust-red stone defense towers, bristling with weapons platforms, and beyond it all, the endless wasteland under blood-colored sea. The furniture was minimal, a desk carved from black stone, two chairs, a holographic display that currently showed tactical overlays of the border region. Sarath stood with her back to me, hands clasped behind her, watching the crimson horizon like it held answers to questions I couldn't hear. "Sit," she said without turning around. I sat. For a long moment she didn't speak, just watched the wastelands. Her posture was perfect. Military straight, but something about the set of her shoulders suggested tension. "You have been approached by Lieutenant Thorne," she said. It wasn't a question. "How did you know?" "Because that is what he does." She turned to face me, and the intensity of her gaze made my pulse kick up. "Thorne and his factions see you as leverage. They will continue to pressure you until you either align with them or become useless to their ambitions. And your solution was to kiss me in front of your entire command." "Yes." Without asking. There was no time to ask. Her voice was flat, matter of fact, no apology, no excuse, just cold tactical reasoning. "Thorne intended to make his own claim during the assembly," Sarath continued. "I preempted him." I blinked. He was going to what? Kiss you, no worse. He would have offered a battle accord, a formal challenge where you would be the prize. It would have forced me to either fight him publicly or concede authority over you. Either outcome would have destabilized the chain of command. I processed that, tried to imagine being fought over like a trophy. The image made my stomach turn. "So you kissed me to avoid a duel." "I kissed you to protect you and to secure my position." Both were necessary. Blunt, no remorse, just tactical assessment delivered in that dual harmonic voice that made everything sound more important than it was. I should have been furious, should have demanded she reverse the claim or let me transfer back to Allied command, should have filed a formal complaint about consent violations and diplomatic overreach. Instead, I felt something uncomfortably close to respect. "Okay," I said slowly. "So what happens now?" Something shifted in Sarath's expression. Not much. Just a slight tightening around her eyes. A crack in the professional armor. "Now you must decide whether to honor the vow mark or to reject it." She moved closer. Not threatening, not aggressive, just closing the distance until she stood directly in front of my chair. "If you honor it," she said, "you will be bound to me by Kale law. You will be under my protection, but also under my authority. You will be expected to train with my guard, attend formal functions at my side, and eventually undergo the bonding rite. And if I reject it, you will remain here as a neutral liaison. My protection will be void. Thorne and others will be free to pursue their own claims. So I trade one claim for potential multiple claims." "Yes," I laughed. Short, sharp, borderline hysterical. "This is insane. This is politics." Same thing. For the first time, I saw something that might have been amusement flicker across her face. "You are not what I expected, Captain Ashford." "Yeah, well, you're exactly as terrifying as advertised commander." She moved closer. Suddenly the room felt smaller. The air felt thinner. "I did not choose this lightly," she said. Her voice dropped lower, both frequencies resonating in a way that made my bones vibrate. "The vow mark is sacred among my people. I would not have invoked it for mere strategy." "Then why did you—" She was close enough now that I could see the faint shimmer of bioluminescence beneath her skin. The way those traceries of light pulsed faster when she looked at me. The way her pupils dilated slightly, vertical slits widening. "Because I have watched your service record," she said. "I have read your reports. Mission after mission you adapt. You survive. You understand. And when I saw you walk into that hall, I knew that if anyone could navigate this outpost without losing themselves, it would be you." Her voice dropped even lower. "And I knew that I wanted you under my protection, not as a pawn, as a partner." My breath caught. "This is still your choice," Sarath said. "I will not force you, but understand the stakes. If you refuse me, you will be vulnerable. If you accept me, you will be bound to a culture and a woman you barely know. There will be consequences. Political, personal, permanent. I should have asked for time, should have demanded a treaty lawyer, should have run. Instead, I said, if I accept, do I get a say in how this partnership works? Within reason. And if Thorne or anyone else tries to challenge you over me, her smile was sharp and dangerous, then I will remind them why I hold this at command. I believed her. Okay, I said, I accept. Something shifted in her expression. Relief maybe, or satisfaction, or something deeper that I didn't have the words for. She reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away, and touched my jaw with the tips of her fingers. Cool skin against mine, that faint vibration of dual harmonic resonance, the bioluminescent patterns beneath her skin flaring brighter. Then we are bound, Marlowe Ashford. The way she said my name, both frequencies wrapping around the syllables, made something in my chest tighten. What happens next? I asked. Next you train, you learn our ways. And in 2 weeks we will face the conclave review where Thorne and the other dissenting officers will attempt to invalidate the vow mark. Naturally. And after that, she said, her thumb brushing the edge of my jaw, we will see if you still think I am terrifying. I'm pretty sure that's a guarantee, Commander. She leaned in close enough that I felt the cool touch of her breath against my face. Good, she said. Fear keeps you sharp. Then she stepped back. All business again. Professional distance restored like nothing had happened. Report to Training Bay 4 at dawn. Soren will escort you. Dismissed. I stood, legs shakier than I wanted to admit, headed for the door. Marlowe, I turned. Sarath was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Something softer than her usual command mask. Something that looked almost like vulnerability. Thank you, she said quietly, for trusting me. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just nodded and left. That night, I lay in my bunk and stared at the ceiling. The bioluminescent crystals cast faint blue light across the stone. Outside my viewport, the Sara's wasteland stretched endlessly under distant stars. My hand drifted to my jaw, to the place where Sarath's fingers had rested. The ghost of that touch still tingled against my skin. Then we are bound, Marlowe Ashford. I closed my eyes, tried to sleep, failed. In 2 weeks, I'd face a formal review where officers would try to invalidate that bond. Beyond that lay complications I couldn't even begin to predict. But for now, in the quiet darkness of my quarters, I let myself feel something unexpected. Hope. Dawn on Thesara came pale and cold, 2 distant suns casting long shadows across rust-colored stone. I stood in Training Bay 4 at 0500, wearing the lightweight combat suit Soren had delivered to my quarters. It fit like it had been made for me. Probably had been. The Kale didn't seem to do anything by half measures. The bay was massive, 50 meters square, reinforced floors, walls lined with weapon racks and training equipment I didn't recognize. And standing in formation, 12 members of Commander Sarath's honor guard. They looked at me like I was a problem they hadn't figured out how to solve yet. Sarath stood at the center of the formation. She'd traded her formal uniform for training gear. Dark weave that moved like liquid, reinforced at the joints, her hair still bound in that war knot. Even in workout clothes, she looked like she could kill me 6 different ways before I hit the ground. Captain Ashford, she said. Her dual harmonic voice echoed in the empty bay. For the next 2 weeks, you will train with my guard. You will learn Kale combat techniques. You will master our protocols. You will prove that you deserve the vow mark I have placed upon you. No pressure. Understood, Commander. We begin with hand-to-hand forms. The next 2 hours broke me down and rebuilt me 3 times over. Kale combat wasn't like anything I'd trained in before. Human martial arts focused on leverage grappling, using an opponent's weight against them. Kale fighting was all speed and precision. Strike, redirect, strike again. Movements so fast they blurred. Targeting nerve clusters and joint locks with surgical accuracy. I was slower than the guards. Weaker. My reflexes were human speed, which meant I was always half a second behind. But I was adaptable. That's what 17 missions had taught me. Watch, learn, adjust. By the end of the first session, I could hold a basic defensive stance without collapsing. By the end of the first week, I could complete the first form without stopping. By the end of the second week, I could spar with the junior guards without getting completely demolished. Sarath watched every session. never interfering, never offering praise. Just observing with those violet eyes that tracked every movement like she was cataloging my weaknesses. When I collapsed during a particularly brutal sparring match, vision swimming, lungs burning, she was the one who pulled me up. Her hand was cool and strong around my wrist. "Water," she said, pressing a container into my hands. I drank, tried to catch my breath, tried not to think about how her fingers had felt against my skin. "You're improving," she said. Coming from her, that felt like a battlefield commendation. The training wasn't just physical. Soren spent hours teaching me cultural protocols, how to read hierarchy through posture and gesture, the difference between a formal greeting and a challenge, the 100 tiny ways Kale communicated status and intent without speaking. I learned that direct eye contact was either intimacy or aggression depending on context, that touching someone's shoulder meant respect, but touching their neck meant something else entirely. That the bioluminescent patterns beneath Kale's skin weren't just decorative. They reflected emotional state. Brighter meant arousal or anger. Dimmer meant calm or sadness. I learned that Commander Sarath's patterns pulsed faster whenever I was near. Weapons training came in the second week. Plasma staffs, they called them. 6-foot poles that generated controlled energy fields at both ends. Lethal if you knew what you were doing. Lethal to the user if you didn't. The first time I activated one, the energy field nearly took my hand off. Sarath caught my wrist before I could complete the swing that would have vaporized my fingers. "Respect the weapon," she said. "It will respect you in return." Her hand stayed on my wrist longer than necessary, her thumb pressed against my pulse point, feeling my heartbeat, measuring my fear or my focus or something else I couldn't name. "Again," she said. By the end of the week, I could perform the basic staff forms without maiming myself. By the end of the second week, I could hold my own in controlled combat drills. The honor guards stopped looking at me like I was a liability, started nodding when I entered the training bay. Small gestures, acknowledgement. Respect earned one bruise at a time. I was adapting, surviving, maybe even thriving, and I was falling for the woman who'd claimed me without asking. It happened during a late-night session after brutal training. My entire body ached. My muscles felt like they'd been shredded and stapled back together. I'd taken a plasma staff hit to the ribs during drills that left a burn mark across my side even through the protective weave. Sarath had dismissed the guards early, said she wanted to review my form personally. We were alone in the training bay, just us and the blue bioluminescent light and the echo of our breathing in the empty space. "Remove your jacket," she said. I hesitated, then complied. The burn across my ribs was angry red, blistering at the edges. Sarath's expression tightened. Her bioluminescent patterns flared brighter beneath her skin. "Who struck you?" "Doesn't matter. It was a clean hit. I should have blocked faster." "Who?" "Specialist Raven, but it was my fault, Commander. I dropped my guard." She moved closer. Her fingers ghosted over the burn without touching. I could feel the heat of her skin, even through the inch of air between us. "You are improving faster than I expected," she said quietly. Both frequencies of her voice resonated lower intimate. "Most humans require months to adapt to our training protocols. You have done it in days." "I'm motivated." "Yes." She looked up from the burn, met my eyes. "You are." The air between us felt charged, electric, like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks. Sarath stepped back, moved to the equipment storage, returned with a medical kit. Without asking permission, she began treating the burn. Her fingers were cool and precise, professional. But the way her bioluminescent patterns kept flaring suggested something less professional was happening beneath that control. "Why did you really choose me?" I asked. The question had been building for 2 weeks. "You said you read my reports, but there are hundreds of scouts with clean records. Why me specifically?" Sarath was quiet for a long moment. Her fingers continued working, applying some kind of gel that made the burn stop screaming. "Mission 9, she said finally. "Your report from the Veritas sector." I remembered that one. Hostile faction negotiations. 3 weeks embedded with rebels who saw the ceasefire as betrayal. I'd brokered a compromise that prevented an assassination attempt on an allied diplomat. You wrote that the key to negotiation was not finding common ground, but recognizing that both sides were fighting for what they believed was survival. Sarath's voice dropped lower. You showed warriors wisdom and diplomats heart in the same breath. That is, a rare. She finished with the burn, sealed the medical kit, but didn't step away. When I read that report, I thought, this is someone who understands that strength and compassion are not opposites. Someone who could survive in a culture that values both. She paused. Someone I could trust. And the kiss, I asked. The public claim, that was tactical necessity, but the choice of who to claim. Her eyes met mine. That was personal. The admission hung between us. Heavy, significant. I reached up, slowly, giving her time to pull away, and touched the side of her face. Her skin was cool beneath my palm, smooth. The bioluminescent patterns beneath flared brilliant racing along her neck and jaw like lightning. You're glowing, I said. That happens, she said, when I am near you. I leaned in. She mirrored the movement. Our faces inches apart. I could feel that dual harmonic resonance vibrating in the air between us. We shouldn't, she said, but she didn't pull away. Probably not. The bonding rite should come first. It would be improper. Very improper. I am trying, she said, and her voice was rough, both frequencies catching to honor tradition. I know. We stayed like that, foreheads almost touching, breathing the same air, wanting and not taking, the tension between us thick enough to cut. Finally, Sarath pulled back, put 3 feet of distance between us like she was physically forcing herself away. Dawn training, she said. Her voice was sturdy again. Professional. Do not be late. Yes, Commander. I watched her leave. Watched the way her patterns still glowed bright beneath her skin, even as she disappeared through the bay doors. Yeah, I was definitely falling for her. The 3rd week brought new complications. During a tactical briefing on defensive protocols, one of Thorne's junior officers made a comment, loud enough to carry, pointed enough to draw blood. Perhaps the human liaison could offer insight on how untrained civilians might breach our perimeter, since that seems to be her level of expertise. The room went silent. I kept my face neutral, didn't react. 17 missions had taught me that responding to provocations usually made things worse. But Sarath responded. She turned from the tactical display. Looked at the officer. Her expression didn't change. Didn't have to. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Specialist Corin, she said. Her voice was ice wrapped in razors. Captain Ashford has successfully infiltrated 9 hostile installations that your division failed to penetrate. She has negotiated 3 separate ceasefire agreements that prevented significant casualties on both sides. And in the 2 weeks she has been here, she has demonstrated more tactical adaptability than you have shown in your entire career. The officer's silver skin went pale. You will apologize, Sarath continued, or you will be reassigned to mining detail on the southern continent where the only thing you will infiltrate is rock. The officer stammered an apology, left the briefing room shaking. I caught Sarath's eye across the room. She gave me the smallest nod. Acknowledgement. Protection. Partnership. That's when I understood. This wasn't just about politics or treaties or military alliances. She was fiercely, absolutely, completely protective of me. And I was starting to realize I'd fight just as hard for her. The assassination attempt came during week 3. Plasma containment drill in Training Bay 4. Standard protocol. The guards were running exercises with live energy fields, practicing combat formations while maintaining safety protocols. I was in the rotation, sparring with Specialist Raven, the same guard who'd burned me the week before. We developed a mutual respect. She hit hard but clean. I was getting better at predicting her strikes. The containment field hummed around the perimeter of the bay. Standard safety measure. If anyone's plasma staff overloaded the field would absorb the excess energy and prevent catastrophic damage. I blocked Raven's high strike. Redirected. Went low for a sweep. She pivoted. Brought her staff around in a beautiful arc that I almost didn't see coming. Then the containment field failed. Not flickered, not malfunctioned. Failed completely. Every safety protocol dropped at once. And in that exact moment, a plasma staff at full charge discharged directly at me. I had maybe half a second to process. Not enough time to move. Not enough time to block. Just enough time to understand I was about to be vaporized. Then something hit me like a freight train. Sarath. She came out of nowhere, wrapped both arms around me, threw us both sideways. The plasma blast missed me by inches, scorched the air where I'd been standing, hit the wall behind us with enough force to crack stone. We hit the ground hard, Sarath's body covering mine, protective, shielding, and then I smelled burning. Sarath. She rolled off me. Her back and shoulder were burned, not superficial training burns. Deep, serious, silver skin blackened and blistered. The bioluminescent patterns beneath stuttering and dim. Emergency alarms screamed. Guards rushed forward. Soren was shouting orders. Someone was demanding a medic. I crawled to Sarath. She was on her hands and knees, breathing hard, both frequencies of her voice roughened with pain. "Don't move," I said. My hands were shaking. "Medical is coming." "The field," she managed. "Sabotage." I know, just stay still." Her violet eyes found mine. Even in pain, even burned and bleeding, she looked at me with absolute clarity. "Are you hurt?" "No, you're hurt. You took the hit for me." Her hand came up, gripped my wrist tight enough to bruise. Both frequencies of her voice strained but certain. "That is what protection means. That is what the Valmark means." The medics arrived, took over, darted treatment that made Sarath's patterns flare with pain. I stayed next to her, held her hand, felt her grip tight enough to leave marks. The investigation took 3 hours. They found the sabotage. A junior technician named Voren who'd been assigned to the training base systems. He confessed under interrogation, admitted he'd been paid by Thorne's faction to create an accident that would eliminate me without obvious foul play. Sarath was released from medical with burn dressings and strict orders to rest. She ignored the rest order, called an immediate assembly in the command room. I watched from the observation deck as she delivered judgment. Her voice was cold, controlled, absolutely merciless. Voren was stripped of rank, dishonorably discharged, assigned to the mining colony on Thessera's southern continent for 20 years. Thorne wasn't directly implicated, not enough for formal charges, but the message was clear. Touch what's mine, and I will destroy you. That night I went to her quarters uninvited. She answered the door still wearing the burn dressings. Her face was drawn, exhausted. The bioluminescent patterns beneath her skin were dim. "You should be resting," I said. "So should you." "Can I come in?" She stepped aside. Her quarters were larger than mine, but just as austere. Desk, viewport, a few personal items, weapons on the wall, everything precise and orderly. I closed the door behind me. "You could have been killed," I said, "but I was not. Sarath, and neither were you." She moved closer. Her patterns flared slightly brighter. "That is what matters." I reached for her, careful of the burns, touched her face like she'd touched mine in the training bay. Her skin was still cool, despite the burns. Her patterns raced beneath my palm. "Thank you," I said, "for saving me." "You do not need to thank me for that." "Yes, I do." Then I kissed her. Not tentative, not questioning. A real kiss. Reciprocal. Claiming her the way she'd claimed me in that hall 3 weeks ago. She responded immediately, pulled me closer, one hand at my waist, the other cradling the back of my neck. Her lips cool and firm. That dual harmonic resonance vibrating through the kiss in a way that made my entire nervous system light up. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. "We should not," she said, but her hand didn't leave my neck. "The bonding right can wait." I leaned my forehead against hers. "You nearly died protecting me today. I'm not waiting anymore." Her patterns flared brilliant, every line beneath her skin glowing like stars. "The conclave review is in 4 days," she said. "I know. If we complete the bonding before then they can't challenge it. I know." I pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. "Is that what you want?" "What I want," Sarah said, and her voice was raw, both frequencies rough with emotion, "is you, completely, without reservation. But I will not dishonor tradition for convenience." "Then we wait," I said. 4 days. We prove the Valmark is valid at the conclave. Then we complete the bonding. 4 days. I can wait 4 days. She kissed me again, slower this time. Deliberate, a promise. 4 days, she agreed. The next 3 days were a blur of preparation and paranoia. I spent hours with Soren learning Kale legal precedents, memorizing protocols for conclave proceedings, understanding what challenges might be raised and how to respond. I trained harder, pushed myself until my muscles screamed, until I could complete the advanced forms without breaking, until the honor guards started treating me like one of their own. And I started noticing things, small things, inconsistent patrol schedules, communications that didn't follow standard protocols, guards who were loyal to Thorn moving through sections they had no reason to access. I'd been a scout for 8 years. Pattern recognition was survival. Something was happening, something beyond assassination attempts and political maneuvering. On the third night before the conclave, I couldn't sleep. Restless energy and paranoia kept me pacing my quarters until I made a decision. I broke into the communications system. Not hard, really, my infiltration specialty. I'd bypassed more sophisticated security during Mission 12. The Kale systems were advanced but not impenetrable. What I found made my blood run cold. Encrypted transmissions, dozens of them, all routed through channels that shouldn't exist, all originating from terminals assigned to Thorn's faction, and all of them going to an external source, off-station, beyond treaty space. I cracked the encryption. Took 3 hours and some creative coding I'd learned from an allied tech specialist. But I got in. The messages were explicit. Coordination with a militant faction that opposed the ceasefire, weapons shipments, sabotage plans, and proof that Thorn was profiting, arms deals, black market trading, using his position to funnel military equipment to groups that wanted to restart the war. He wasn't just opposing the treaty, he was actively undermining it for profit. I copied everything, secured the data, and went straight to Sharath's quarters. It was 0300. She answered the door in sleeping clothes, hair unbound for the first time since I'd met her. Silver white strands falling past her shoulders. She looked softer, younger, still dangerous. Marlowe, what? Thorn is coordinating with external militants. He's profiting from arms trades. I have proof. I handed her the data chip. She took it. Her expression went from concern to cold rage in 3 seconds. How did you obtain this? Do you really want to know? No. She pulled me inside, closed the door, pulled up the data on her desk terminal. I watched her read, watched her patterns flare brighter and brighter with each message, watched fury and calculation war across her face. This is insufficient for formal charges, she said finally. What? That's explicit coordination. Without chain of custody, it will be challenged. We obtained this through unauthorized access. Thorn will claim fabrication. She looked at me, but it confirms what we suspected, and it gives us leverage. So what do? We proceed with the conclave as planned. We validate the Valmark, and then with full authority, we investigate him properly. Her hand closed around mine. But this changes the stakes. Thorn will not accept defeat quietly. He may act before the conclave. Let him try. She smiled, sharp and dangerous. Yes, let him. The day before the conclave, I received a communication from Allied Command, Colonel Barrett Thayer. My former supervising officer. The call came through on secured channels. His face appeared on the screen. Weathered, experienced. The kind of face that had seen everything twice and wasn't impressed either time. Captain Ashford, status update. I gave him the abbreviated version. Valmark, political factions, Thorn's opposition, assassination attempt. Conclave review tomorrow. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Trust your training, Ashford. Make the call you think is right. That was it. No advice, no orders, just acknowledgement that this was my decision to make. Yes, sir. Good luck, Captain. The call ended. I sat in my quarters and thought about choices, about adaptation and survival and the difference between smart tactical decisions and right ones. Tomorrow, I'd face a formal review where officers would try to invalidate the bond I'd accepted. And somewhere beyond that, I'd help expose a traitor who wanted to restart a war. I touched my jaw where Sarath's fingers had rested that first day. Then we are bound, Marlowe Ashford. Tomorrow I'd prove it. The Hall of Convergence looked different the second time I entered it. Or maybe I was different. 3 weeks ago, I'd walked through those massive obsidian doors as a scout on a routine assignment. Naive, unprepared, thinking I understood what I was walking into. Now I walk through them as something else entirely. Warrior trained, battle-tested, bearing the vow mark of Commander K.L. Sarath in front of 200 witnesses who would either validate that claim or tear it apart. The hall was packed, not just the garrison soldiers this time. Senior KL officials lined the upper galleries, representatives from the High Council, officers from across the sector, everyone who had a stake in treaty politics or command hierarchies, or the question of whether a human could truly bond with KL. The air hummed with tension. Bioluminescent crystals pulsed brighter than normal, responding to the collective energy of hundreds of Kale gathered in one space. Sarath stood at the central dais, full formal uniform, war not perfect. Every inch the commander who'd claimed me without asking. But I could see the signs now. The way her patterns glowed slightly brighter beneath her collar. The way her eyes tracked me across the hall. The way her hands clasped behind her back, fingers tight with tension only I would recognize. Lieutenant Vex Thorne stood at the opposing dais, flanked by 3 senior officers who'd aligned with his faction. He looked confident, satisfied, like he was already counting his victory. I took my position at the center of the floor. Alone, exposed. Every eye in the hall focused on me. Let them look. The proceedings began with formal protocols, ancient traditions spoken in the harmonic language of the Kale. I caught maybe 1 word in 5, but Soren had prepared me. This was about establishing legitimacy, setting the terms, making sure everyone understood this wasn't just politics. This was about honor. A senior adjudicator stepped forward. Her patterns were dim with age, her voice carrying the weight of decades. We convened to address the vow mark declared by Commander Kael Sarath upon Captain Marlowe Ashford of Allied territories. Lieutenant Vex Thorne has formally challenged the validity of this claim. Both parties will present their arguments. The Assembly will render judgment. Thorne moved first. He was good, I had to give him that. His argument was precise, clinical, designed to dismantle the vow mark without appearing petty or political. The vow mark is our most sacred tradition, he began. His dual harmonic voice carried perfectly through the hall. It represents the deepest bond our people can form. Partnership, trust, unity of purpose. He paused. Let that sink in. Commander Sarath claims such a bond with a human, with a species we have only recently ceased fighting, with an individual who has been on this outpost for less than 1 lunar cycle. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. This is not tradition. This is political maneuvering. The commander seeks to shield herself from legitimate criticism by invoking sacred customs inappropriately. He turned to face me directly. Captain Ashford is by all accounts a competent soldier, but competence does not qualify one for bonding. She does not understand our culture. She does not share our values. She is fundamentally incompatible with Kale tradition. His next words hit harder. The treaty that brought her here explicitly states that cultural exchanges are professional assignments, not personal unions. Commander Sarath has exceeded her authority. She has used sacred tradition for political advantage, and in doing so, she has dishonored the very customs she claims to uphold. More murmurs, louder now. I saw officials nodding, saw the calculation in their patterns. Thorne pressed his advantage. Furthermore, the vow mark endangers command hierarchy. It places a foreign operative in a position of influence over military decisions. It creates conflicts of interest. It threatens operational security. He listed precedents, cited legal codes, built his case methodically. By our own laws, this vow mark is invalid. It should be voided. Commander Sarath should be formally reprimanded, and Captain Ashford should be reassigned to neutral liaison duties under proper oversight. He finished with a slight bow, respectful, reasonable, devastating. The assembly shifted, patterns flickering with consideration. I could feel the momentum turning against us. Then Sarath stepped forward. She didn't rush, didn't show concern, just moved with that absolute confidence that made people follow her into combat. Lieutenant Thorne speaks of tradition, she said, her voice cut through the murmurs like a blade. Let us examine tradition. She pulled up a holographic display, historical records, legal precedents, documentation going back centuries. The Kalen precedent of the Seventh Era. Commander Valen bonded with a member of the Risk clan during treaty negotiations. Cross-clan bonding was controversial, opposed by traditionalists, yet the bond held, strengthened both clans, led to 3 generations of peace. Another display, the Myron Accord. 2 commanders from opposing military factions bonded during ceasefire. Opponents claimed political manipulation, yet the bond was validated, honored, became the foundation for lasting alliance. She cycled through more examples, each one showing precedent for bonds formed across divisions, cultural barriers, political opposition. Tradition is not stagnation, Sareth said. It is evolution, growth, recognition that strength comes not from isolation, but from partnerships that challenge us to become more than we were. She turned to address the assembly directly. Captain Ashford has spent 3 weeks training with my guard. She has mastered combat forms that take most initiates months to learn. She has adapted to our protocols, earned the respect of warriors who initially doubted her. She has survived an assassination attempt orchestrated by officers who saw her as weakness. Her patterns flared brighter. She has proven herself worthy by every measure we use to evaluate our own warriors. Sarath pulled up my service record, displayed it for all to see. 17 successful reconnaissance missions, 0 casualties, cultural adaptation scores in the 98th percentile, treaty negotiations that prevented 3 separate conflicts. She is not some naive outsider. She is a warrior who understands both strength and diplomacy. Exactly the partner needed in times like these. The momentum shifted. I saw patterns changing, officials reconsidering. Sarath pressed forward. Lieutenant Thorne claims I exceeded my authority, yet treaty language explicitly encourages cultural integration. The vow mark was witnessed by this garrison, honored by those who serve under my command. It is valid by every legal standard. She met Thorne's gaze across the hall. Unless the lieutenant wishes to claim that the 200 soldiers who witnessed the declaration were all mistaken, that their honor means nothing. Dangerous ground, challenging the garrison's integrity. Thorne's expression tightened. Furthermore, Sarath continued, this challenge reveals its true nature, not concern for tradition, not protection of hierarchy, but political opposition disguised as legal argument. The lieutenant has opposed the treaty from its inception. He sees the ceasefire as weakness, and he sees my partnership with Captain Ashford as a symbol of that weakness. She pulled up communications logs, carefully edited to show patterns without revealing my illegal access. Communications irregularities, unusual patrol schedules, resources diverted without proper authorization, all emanating from the lieutenant's division. One might ask, what is he hiding? Thorne's patterns flared with anger, but he controlled it. Commander Sarath attempts to deflect legitimate criticism with baseless accusations. These proceedings are about the vow mark, nothing more. The adjudicator raised her hand. Both parties have presented their arguments. The assembly will deliberate. I invoke the old codes. Thorne's voice cut through the hall like a plasma blast. Silence. Complete. Absolute. Silence. Even the adjudicator looked shocked. Lieutenant, she said carefully, the old codes have not been invoked in 3 generations. Are you certain? I am certain. Thorne stepped forward. His expression was cold calculation. By the old codes, an incomplete vow mark may be challenged by any officer of equal or greater rank. Commander Sarath has made her claim, but the bonding rite remains uncompleted. Therefore, the vow mark is vulnerable to challenge. The assembly erupted, officers shouting, patterns flaring, the adjudicator calling for order. I stood frozen. This wasn't in any of the scenarios Soren had prepared me for. Sarath's jaw tightened. Her patterns blazed brilliant. You would invoke ancient tradition to undermine current law. I invoke tradition to uphold it. Thorne turned to face me. Captain Ashford, you have a choice. Accept my challenge, which voids Commander Sarath's claim and places your fate in a formal contest, or complete the bonding rite with Commander Sarath here and now, making the vow mark irrevocable. He smiled. cold, and sharp. Choose wisely, Captain. The commander's authority wanes. Her political position weakens. Her enemies gather. I offer you protection under stronger command, better opportunities, a future not tied to a leader whose star is fading. The hall waited. 200 witnesses, dozens of officials, all watching me. This was it, the moment everything came down to. Accept Thorne's challenge. Walk away from Shrath. Void the vow mark. Save myself the complications of bonding across species, across cultures, across every rational objection my training screamed at me. Or complete the bonding rite. Bind myself irrevocably to a woman I'd known for 3 weeks. A woman who'd claimed me without asking. A woman who'd saved my life and trained me and shown me what partnership meant, even when it was terrifying. I looked at Thorne, saw the calculation in his eyes, the certainty that I'd choose self-preservation, that I'd make the smart, tactical decision. I looked at Sarath, saw something different, not pleading, not demanding, just steady, absolute, the same look she'd given me when she touched my jaw and said, "Then we are bound." She wasn't asking me to choose her. She was trusting me to choose truth. I thought about Mission 9, the hostile faction negotiations, finding compromise not by choosing sides, but by recognizing that both sides were fighting for survival. Sarath had read that report and seen something in me I'd barely recognized in myself. Someone who understood that strength and compassion weren't opposites. Someone who could be trusted with something sacred. I thought about the training bay, Sarath pulling me up when I collapsed, handing me water, watching me improve with those violet eyes that tracked every movement. I thought about the assassination attempt, Sarath throwing herself between me and a plasma blast, taking burns across her back, her voice certain even through pain. I thought about last night, standing in her quarters with stolen intelligence, her hand closing around mine, her trust absolute even when I'd broken protocol to protect us both. This wasn't about politics, wasn't about treaties or hierarchies or rational tactical decisions. This was about choosing the person who'd seen me completely and decided I was worth fighting for. I stepped forward. Every step echoed in the silent hall. My boots clicked against stone, my heart hammered against my ribs. But my mind was clear. I crossed the floor, walked past Thorne without even glancing at him, and walked straight to Shrath. Reached her dais, climbed the 3 steps, stood directly in front of her, took her hand. Her skin was cool. Her pattern blazed brilliant beneath my palm. Her eyes searched mine, looking for certainty or doubt or whatever answer she needed. I gave her both. Complete the rite, Commander. The hall exploded, shouting, protests. Thorne's voice cutting through the chaos with fury barely contained. The adjudicator calling for order. Guards moving forward to maintain control. I didn't care about any of it. I only cared about the way Sarath's expression shifted. Relief and triumph and something deeper. Something that looked like the moment before a storm breaks or a battle begins or 2 people stop pretending they're anything other than completely irrevocably committed. She pulled me close. One hand at my waist, the other cradling the back of my neck. The same way she'd held me that first day in this hall when she'd claimed me without asking. But this time I was claiming her right back. By the old laws in the new accord, Sarath said, and her dual harmonic voice resonated through the hall, through my bones, through every nerve ending. I claim Marlo Ashford as my bonded partner. From this moment, her battles are mine. Her triumphs are mine. Her life is bound to mine. Witness and honor this union. She kissed me, not the claiming kiss from 3 weeks ago, not the desperate kiss from her quarters after the assassination attempt. This was something else entirely. Promise, declaration, commitment, challenge. Her lips were cool and firm. Her patterns blazed so bright I could see them through closed eyelids. That dual harmonic resonance vibrated through the kiss in a way that made reality narrow down to the point where we connected. I kissed her back with everything I had. Every fear I was choosing to ignore. Every rational objection I was deciding didn't matter. Every piece of myself I was offering without reservation. When we broke apart, both of us breathing hard, the hall was still erupting with noise. But for just a moment, standing on that dais with Sarath's arms around me, and her patterns blazing brilliant beneath my hands, everything else faded. This was real, permanent, irrevocable. 3 weeks ago, I'd been a scout on a routine assignment. Now I was bonded to an alien commander in front of hundreds of witnesses. I trained as a warrior, survived assassination, fallen in love with someone I barely knew but trusted completely. Sarah's thumb brushed my jaw, that same gesture from our first meeting. But now it meant something different. Not a claim, a promise. "How do you feel?" she asked quietly, both frequencies resonating just for me. "Terrified," I admitted. "Certain," both at once. Her smile was soft, genuine, the kind she only showed when we were alone. That is how all great partnerships begin. I laughed. The sound felt strange in my throat. Relief and joy and the bone-deep satisfaction of making a choice and knowing it was right. Around us, the honor guard began the traditional bonding salute, weapons striking shields in perfect rhythm. The sound echoed through the hall like thunder. Acknowledgement, celebration, honor. We'd won this battle together. Whatever came next, we'd face it the same way. Sarath turned to address the assembly, her voice carrying over the noise. "The bonding rite is complete, witnessed, validated. Captain Ashford and I are formally recognized as bonded partners under KL law." The adjudicator stepped forward. Her ancient face was unreadable, but her patterns showed grudging respect. "The bonding is witnessed. By law and tradition, Commander Sarath and Captain Ashford are formally recognized as bonded partners. The challenge is resolved." The hall erupted again, this time with mixed reactions, some approving, some outraged. But the decision was made. Thorn stood frozen, fury radiating from every line of his body. His patterns blazed with rage barely contained. Then he looked directly at me, his expression cold, calculating, promising violence. "This is not over, Captain," he said quietly. But in the acoustics of that hall, his words carried. "You have made your choice. Now live with the consequences." He turned and stormed out. His faction followed like an army retreating to regroup. I watched them go and felt cold certainty settle in my gut. Thorn wasn't defeated, just delayed, and a cornered predator was always the most dangerous. But I also felt Sarah's hand still holding mine, felt her patterns still blazing, bright and strong, felt the weight of hundreds of witnesses acknowledging what we'd just done. The aftermath was controlled chaos. Well-wishers from Sarath's faction approached the dais, officers offering congratulations, some genuine, some political calculation. Honor Guard members giving the formal salute that acknowledged bonded partnerships. Soren appeared at my elbow, looking harried but pleased. "Commander, Captain, congratulations. However, I must inform you that High Council has dispatched a special envoy to investigate the bonding's legitimacy. He arrives in 3 days." Sarath's smile didn't fade. "Then we have 3 days to prepare." "The envoy is Counselor Thane Vex," Soren added quietly. That made Sarath's expression tighten slightly. Just a flicker. Then back to control. "Understood. Thank you, Specialist." I waited until Soren left before asking, "Who's Thane Vex, my former commanding officer?" Sarath's hand tightened around mine. "He trained me, then opposed my promotion to commander. Believed my tactics were too aggressive, too unorthodox. So this investigation won't be friendly." "No." She looked at me. "But we are bonded now, truly, irrevocably. Let him come, let them all come. We face it together." Together. Yeah, I like the sound of that. We left the Hall of Convergence hand in hand, ignored the stares and whispers, walked through corridors lined with guards who either saluted or looked away. I didn't care which. The weight that had been pressing on me for 3 weeks had lifted, replaced by something else. Certainty, commitment, the knowledge that I'd made a choice and would stand by it no matter what came next. That night, standing in Sarath's quarters with her arms around me, and Thesara's moons rising outside, I thought about transformation. The viewport overlooked the endless, rust-red wastelands. 2 pale moons climbed higher in the blood-dark sky. Inside, the blue bioluminescence cast everything in soft light. Sarath had removed her formal armor. Just the dark underweave, now her hair finally unbound and falling in silver-white waves past her shoulders. The bioluminescent patterns beneath her skin glowed steady and bright, content, no longer flickering with tension or fear. I moved to stand beside her at the viewport. Regrets, she asked quietly. None. I turned in her arms, met those violet eyes that had terrified me once and now felt like home. You only that I did not claim you sooner. I smiled, leaned into her touch as her hand came up to cup my face. What happens now? I asked. Now we prepare for Thane's investigation. We prove the bonding is legitimate. We build our case against Thorne's conspiracy. We face whatever comes next. She pulled me closer. Her other hand settled at the small of my back. But first, she said, and her voice dropped lower, both frequencies resonating in a way that made my spine tingle. We have this moment. No politics, no threats, just us. She kissed me, soft and slow, different from every kiss before. This one wasn't claiming or desperate or ceremonial. This was celebration, intimacy, the kind of kiss that said, we made it, we're here, we're together. When we broke apart, I rested my forehead against hers. 3 days until Thane arrives, I said. Yes. And Thorne. He will make his move, soon. Now that we are bonded, we have the authority to investigate him fully. He knows this. Her patterns pulsed brighter. We let him act, then we prove his treason. What if the evidence isn't enough? Then we find more. Her thumb traced along my jaw. But we do it together as partners, as equals. As bonded, I said. As bonded, she agreed. Outside, the scanner on her desk blinked softly. Incoming ship signature detected. 3 days out. Counselor Thane Vex coming to investigate whether what we'd built was real, whether politics or genuine partnership had created this bond. Let him come. Let him test us. We'd prove it 1,000 times over if we had to, because this wasn't about treaties or military alliances or diplomatic necessity anymore. This was about two people who'd found each other across impossible divides and decided that was worth fighting for. I pulled back slightly, looked at the woman who'd claimed me in front of 200 soldiers, who'd trained me as a warrior, who'd taken a plasma blast meant for me, who'd trusted me with intelligence that could destroy her rival, who'd stood with me when I made the hardest choice of my life. I need to tell you something, I said. What? When I accepted the Valmark 3 weeks ago, it was tactical. Self-preservation. The smart move in a bad situation. Her expression didn't change, just waited. But today, when I chose to complete the bonding, I took a breath. That wasn't tactics. That was something else. What was it? Truth. I met her eyes. I'm falling for you, Sarath. Maybe already fallen. I don't know when it happened. Maybe when you pulled me up in the training bay. Maybe when you took that burn protecting me. Maybe the moment you kissed me the first time and I was too shocked to understand what I was feeling. Her patterns flared brilliant. Both her hands came up to frame my face. I have been falling for you since I read your mission reports, she said, since before we met. The kiss was tactical, but the choice to make it, her voice dropped to barely a whisper. That was my heart deciding before my mind caught up. We stood there in the soft blue light, foreheads touching, breathing the same air. Two warriors from different worlds who'd found something neither of us had been looking for. The real battle starts when Thane arrives, she said finally. I know. I laced my fingers through hers, but we fight it together, as partners, as equals, as bonded. The moons rose higher. The ship alert blinked steady. 3 days, 72 hours. Then everything would be tested again. But in that moment, I felt no fear, just peace, certainty, the bone-deep knowledge that I'd made the right choice. Whatever came next, we'd face it the way we'd faced everything else. Together, Sarath pulled me toward the sleeping area. The viewport still showed the wastelands, but the view felt different now. Not desolate, just vast, open, full of possibility. Rest, she said. Tomorrow we begin preparing our defense. Tonight we allow ourselves this. I settled against her, her arms around me, her patterns glowing warm and steady beneath my palm. Outside, Thesara's twin moons cast pale light across endless stone. Inside, we'd built something that shouldn't have been possible. A bond across species, across cultures, across every rational objection. And somehow, impossibly, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Marlowe Srath's voice was soft, both frequencies harmonizing in a way that made my chest tight. Yeah, thank you for choosing me. Thank you, I said, for seeing me. Her arms tightened, her lips pressed against my temple. Her patterns pulsed in rhythm with my heartbeat. We drifted towards sleep like that. Two warriors who'd fought their way to something resembling peace. Two people who'd found partnership in the last place either of us expected. The scanner kept blinking. 3 days out. Counselor Thane Vex approaching. Somewhere in the fortress, Thorn was plotting, coordinating with militants, preparing his next move. The High Council investigation would test everything we'd built. But for now, in the quiet darkness, we had this. Each other, a bond that had been witnessed and validated and made permanent. And that was enough. It had to be, because the real battle was just beginning.